10 years. That's how long it had been since I'd last seen him, since that final summer. Since that night at the lake when the world felt too small for how big our love had grown. 10 years, and yet the memory of him still had weight. It clung to my ribs like dust in old books, never quite letting me breathe fully. And now here I was. The gallery loomed in front of me like a memory I hadn't asked to revisit. A strange blend of modern glass and cold steel. Too elegant, too perfect. The city buzzed behind me, cars hissing past, horns in the distance, wet tires splashing over concrete. But inside, it was quiet. I stepped through the glass doors, and the world changed. The air inside was cooler, crisper. It smelled like linen, varnish, and citrus cologne, faint but hauntingly familiar. It hit me before I even saw him. God, that scent. My boots clicked softly against the polished concrete floor. Every sound felt louder here, like the gallery had been built to hold whispers and secrets. Soft jazz played somewhere in the background, mellow and slow. The kind you sip wine to while pretending your heart isn't beating itself into a panic. I moved past white walls and bold, abstract paintings I couldn't interpret. Color splashes, broken shapes. Some of them looked like pain frozen in oil. Others like chaos disguised as control. I knew I shouldn't be here. I told myself it was just curiosity, that I only came to see the work. But that was a lie I wore like lipstick, visible and easy to wipe off when the night got hard. I came because of him, because the flyer said his name, because my fingers trembled the second I saw it pinned on that downtown corkboard, because I needed to know. Had he changed? Had he forgotten? Had he moved on? Then I saw him. He stood at the far end of the gallery, surrounded by people dressed in black and beige. He wore a suit tailored, sleek, nothing like the worn flannels and paint splattered jeans he used to live in. His hair was darker now, swept back like the city itself had groomed him. He laughed. It wasn't the laugh I remembered. This one was smoother, measured, almost empty. My breath caught in my throat. My feet moved before I could stop them. Every step forward felt like digging up a ghost. And then he turned. His eyes met mine. And my time froze. I waited for it. That spark. That flicker of recognition. The storm of emotions crashing in behind his eyes. The quiet Sarah. Whispered like a prayer. But there was nothing. His gaze lingered just long enough to be polite. And then it passed right over me, dot-like. I was no one. Like I was just another face in the crowd. I stood there, heart thudding in my ears. The jazz faded behind me. The room spun ever so slightly, and still he didn't see me. I stepped closer. Justin, I said, my voice cracked. I hadn't said his name out loud in years. It still tasted like summer wind and broken promises. He turned again. Slower this time. His brow furrowed, polite confusion on his face. I'm sorry, he said, tone even. Do I know you? The world tilted. I stared at him, waiting for the mask to crack, for the smirk, the laugh, the just kidding. But it never came. It's me, I said, somehow steady. Sarah. He blinked once. Sarah Meadowbridge, I added. And I hated how desperate I sounded. The lake. The summer of 2015. He smiled then, but it wasn't real. It was the kind of smile you give when someone reminds you of a vague acquaintance. Ah, he said. Of course. Sorry. I meet so many people these days. So many people. As if I were one of them. As if I hadn't spent every day of that summer tangled in his arms, writing our names on fogged glass. Counting stars, making promises we were too young to keep. I swallowed hard. My fingers curled tightly round my bag strap. Of course, I said, mirroring his empty smile. You're probably really busy now. He shrugged, like it didn't matter. It's been a wild ride. I've got exhibits all over. Paris, Tokyo, Milan. You know, the usual double quotes. No. I didn't know. I hadn't followed him. I refused to let myself Google his name, even when I wanted to. Because if he became everything he dreamed of without me, it would hurt Dot. And if he hadn't, it would hurt. Worse Dot, but seeing him now, successful, admired, surrounded by strangers in designer shoes and glassy eyes, it stung more than I'd prepared for. I always knew you'd make it, I said, because I did. He nodded politely. Thanks. Another silence settled between us. But this wasn't the kind of silence we used to share, soft, comfortable, filled with the sound of wind and waves and possibilities. This one was brittle, thin, sharp-edged. The air between us crackled with what wasn't being said. You remember me. Why are you pretending not to? What did I do? What did you do? Before I could ask anything else, a woman in black approached. She had perfect red lips and a clipboard. Justin, the donors are ready for you in the West Room. He gave her a nod. I'll be right there. And just like that, he turned away. No goodbye. No, it was good to see you again. No, we should catch up. He walked away from me the same way he did 10 years ago without looking back. The door closed behind him, and I stood there, heart in pieces that no gallery could ever display. I didn't remember walking out of the building, but suddenly I was on the sidewalk, mist clinging to my skin like tears that hadn't fallen yet. The streetlights glowed gold and soft, casting long shadows on the wet pavement. Taxis roared past. Somewhere, a couple laughed under an umbrella. I hated how the world kept moving when mine had just stopped. My fingers trembled as I pulled my phone from my coat pocket. I opened my notes app and stared at a blank screen. I wanted to type something, anything. But what could I say? He didn't remember me. He looked at me like a stranger. I think he lied, because he did remember me. I saw it for just a second before the mask settled. There was a flicker, a flash, a crack in the polished surface. He remembered, but he chose not to, and I needed to know why. I walked until my legs ached. Back to my tiny apartment. Back to the bare walls and flickering hallway light and the faint scent of coffee from the neighbors downstairs. I peeled off my coat, collapsed onto the couch, and let the silence wrap around me like an old friend. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about him. About the boy he was, the man he had become, the space between them where I no longer belonged. Why? Did he pretend? What was he hiding? And why? After all these years, did it still hurt this much? I couldn't sleep that night. Not even with the city humming its lullaby outside my window. Not with the blanket wrapped around me, or the steady ticking of the clock above the kitchen sink. Sleep teased me, then fled every time I closed my eyes. Because every time I blinked, I saw him. That moment in the gallery replayed over and over in my mind like a broken record. Do I know you? He had said it like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. And still, deep down, I knew he remembered me. I knew it from the way his eyes widened for that half second. From the breath he caught and released too slowly. From the stiffness in his shoulders when I said my name. He remembered. He just chose not to remember out loud. And I needed to know why. The next morning, I opened the old wooden box from the back of my closet. The one I hadn't touched in nearly a decade. It smelled like old paper and dried rose petals, faint, but still there. The scent of my teenage years, of summer, of Justin. Inside were postcards from nowhere. Photographs of things we swore we'd never forget. And a stack of letters tied together with twine. Some were folded, some sealed, some unfinished. All written by me. None of them sent. I pulled the bundle out with careful fingers, like I was handling something sacred. In a way, I was. These were the words I never had the courage to deliver. The feelings I couldn't say out loud. The pain I refused to share. I unfolded the first one. July 8th, 2015, Dear Justin. I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe I'll burn it. Maybe I'll bury it under the old oak tree where we carved our names. But I need to write it anyway. I miss you already. You're still here. But I can feel you leaving. You say everything's fine, but your eyes aren't as soft and your hands feel colder. I don't know what changed. Maybe it's the weight of your dreams. Maybe it's the pressure from your dad. Maybe it's just growing up. But I want to hold on to this, whatever this is, just a little longer. Please don't go. Love. Sarahi closed my eyes. I remembered the day I wrote that. I was sitting on the porch of the lake house, watching the storm roll in over the water. Justin had been silent all morning. He had spent hours painting in the old shed, and when I brought him lunch, he barely looked at me. That was the beginning of the end. I didn't know it then. I kept hoping things would fix themselves, like magic. But nothing ever did. Later that afternoon, I wandered to a small cafe across the street from the gallery. I told myself I was there for the coffee, but I couldn't stop glancing at the entrance, as if he might walk by, as if I could catch one more glimpse of him without the crowd, without the mask. He didn't come, but someone else did. A woman, early 30s. With sleek black hair and red lipstick that looked too perfect to be real. She ordered tea, then sat a few tables down with her phone pressed to her ear. I recognized her voice. The gallery assistant. The one who had called him Justin and pulled him away from me. She was talking quietly, but I could make out the name. Van Doren Collection and something about a client dinner. Then she paused, glanced around, and her eyes met mine. Just for a second. Then she looked back at her phone. But that second was enough. I got up, walked past her table slowly, letting my coat fall open just slightly as I passed. I wanted her to recognize me too. I wanted her to remember the girl standing in the gallery last night. The girl he had pretended not to know. That evening, I wrote a letter of my own, not one I'd fold and keep hidden in a box. One I planned to deliver to Justin. I don't know what game you're playing. I don't know what kind of life you've built that makes it so easy to erase the past. But I saw you. You saw me, and you knew. You can lie to your friends. You can lie to the art collectors and the curators and the people who hang on your every word. But don't lie to me. I was there. I remember the lake, the fireflies, the songs we sang off key. I remember how you cried the night your father left and how you held me like I was the only thing anchoring you to the world. You don't forget something like that. So if you're going to pretend I never existed, then say it to my face. I'll be at the old library tomorrow. 3 p.m. the second floor, where we used to hide. Between the shelves and read poetry out loud like idiots. Come or don't. But if you don't, I'll know the truth. Sarahi didn't know what I hoped to gain. Closure, maybe. Or confrontation. Maybe I just wanted to see if he'd show up. If any part of the boy I loved was still alive in the man who walked away from me twice. The next day, I arrived early. The old library hadn't changed much. Dusty corners, cracked wooden banisters, the faint smell of parchment and pine cleaner. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding. My boots echoed against the worn steps. I found the aisle poetry and sat with my back to the shelves. I waited. Minutes passed, then half an hour. People came and went. A teenager with headphones. An old man muttering Shakespeare to himself. But not him, not Justin. I checked the time again. 3:42 p.m. I started to gather my things, fingers trembling, and that's when I saw it. A single piece of folded paper tucked between the spine of a book, and the shelf. My heart stopped. I pulled it out. My name was written on the outside. Just one word. Sarah. The handwriting was unmistakable. Slanted, messy. His. I unfolded it slowly, fingers shaking like leaves. Sarah. I'm not proud of what I did. I saw you that night. I felt everything crash back in like a tidal wave. 10 years vanished in a blink, and I was 20 again. Terrified, in love, and utterly unprepared. I didn't know how to speak. So I chose not to. That was cowardly. You deserved better. But I have my reasons. Things happened after you left. Things I never told you. Things I thought I had buried deep enough that I'd never have to explain. But I will, if you're still willing to hear them. Come to the lake. Saturday. Sunset. If you don't come, I'll understand. But if you do, I'll finally tell you the truth. Justini read it again and again, and my chest ached in a way I hadn't felt in years. He remembered. He always did, and he'd been hiding something all along. I stood by the window in the library for a long time afterward, holding that note like it might dissolve in my hands. Outside, the sun was setting over the city, streaking the sky in gold and pink. I didn't know what the truth was, but I knew I had to hear it, even if it broke me, even if it changed everything. Because some ghosts don't stay buried, and some love stories aren't finished until the truth comes out. The road to Meadowbridge hadn't changed. The same winding curves, the same groves of pine leaning in like old friends, even the same rusted mailbox at the turn near Miller's Creek, half tilted and stubborn. I rolled my window down and let the wind tangle my hair. The air smelled like pine sap, rain-soaked earth, and memory. I hadn't driven this road in 10 years dot, and yet I could trace every bend in my sleep. The closer I got, the more my heart pounded, not like excitement, but like fear dressed in nostalgia. He wanted me to meet him at the lake, at sunset. Just like before, I didn't know what I was expecting: an apology, an explanation, maybe even a lie, but I needed answers. I needed something to close the ache that had been open for too long. When I finally parked, the sun had dipped, low, brushing the treetops in gold. The lake shimmered, still and endless, reflecting the sky like a secret held tightly. And there he was, standing at the dock, hands in his coat pockets, hair tousled by the wind, eyes on the water. I stepped out of the car. The gravel crunched beneath my boots. He turned when he heard me, slow and unsure, like even now, he wasn't sure if I'd really come. Hi, I said. He gave me a nod. You came. I had to. A pause stretched between us. The lake lapped quietly against the dock, small waves, tapping with like knuckles on a door. Sarah, he said, before I say anything else, I'm sorry. I swallowed. For what? For pretending not to know you. That night, at the gallery, he looked away. I panicked. I saw you, and it was like everything I'd spent years locking away just exploded. I didn't know how to breathe, let alone talk. I folded my arms. You didn't panic, Justin. You chose to forget. There's a difference. He flinched. I know, and you didn't deserve that. No, I said. I didn't. Silence again. Then, gently, he motioned toward the edge of the dock. Will you sit with me? Just for a minute. I hesitated, then followed him. The boards creaked beneath our weight, just like they always did. We sat side by side, legs dangling over the edge, toes almost touching the water. The sky had turned to fire, orange and rose. The kind of sunset you only ever see once in a lifetime unless you've been here. I still come here sometimes, he said. Not often. Just when I need to think. Why here? Because it was the last place I was truly happy. I turned to him, surprised, and the first place I broke. He looked down at his hands, stronger now, older, but still the same hands that once held mine under moonlight. After you left, he said, things got dark, fast. He paused, breathing in slowly. My dad came back, out of nowhere. He was drunk, angry, told me everything I dreamed about was pointless. That art was a waste, that I'd end up broke and bitter like him. I felt my chest tighten. I tried to fight him, tried to prove him wrong. I pushed harder than ever. But one night, I snapped. I painted for 3 days straight, didn't eat, didn't sleep. I burned out. He stared at the horizon. And when the scholarship fell through because I missed deadlines, I blamed you. I blinked. What? I told myself it was your fault. That if I hadn't wasted that summer with you, I would have made it. That I was distracted. That I lost focus. He laughed bitterly. But it wasn't you. It was me. I was scared of failure, of losing control, of loving you so much it made me weak. I felt something crack in my ribs. I spent years pretending you didn't matter. It made things easier. I told myself you were just a phase, a story I'd outgrown. But last week, he looked at me then, really looked at me. When I saw you in that gallery, I remembered everything instantly, and I realized I never outgrew anything. I just buried it so deep I forgot how much it shaped me. My voice shook. So why pretend? Because if I acknowledged you, he whispered, I'd have to admit I was wrong about everything, about us, about who I became. The breeze carried the scent of cedar and lake water. The sun dipped lower. The sky turned lavender. I'm sorry, Sarah, he said again. Not just for pretending, but for everything I didn't say, for every letter I didn't write. I reached into my coat and pulled out the folded note he'd left in the library. I almost didn't come, I said. I wouldn't have blamed you. I looked at him for a long moment. You hurt me, I said quietly. Not just at the gallery. Back then, too. I didn't understand why you changed, why you pulled away. I thought I wasn't enough. You were more than enough, he said, almost too quickly. You were everything. That's what scared me. We sat in silence as the last sliver of sun disappeared behind the trees. You're still scared, I said. Yes, I nodded. So, a.m. the first later, we walked the shoreline. The sky had gone indigo. The water glowed silver beneath the rising moon. He told me about his travels, the art, the fame that didn't fill the hole, the gallery deals, the interviews, the constant pressure to be a version of himself he didn't recognize. I missed being real, he said. I missed being seen. I answered Dot when we stopped by the old boathouse. He turned to me. Do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. No, I said, but I'm still angry. I can live with that, he said. We smiled, just barely, but it was real. Before I left, we stood by my car, the gravel cool beneath our feet. Crickets filled the silence now, the kind of night sound that wraps around you like a childhood blanket. I don't know what this is, I said, or what it means. Me either, he said. But it's not nothing. No, he said. It's definitely not nothing. I nodded Dot, then I reached up, brushed a leaf from his shoulder like I used to do when we sat under the old oak tree. I don't forgive you yet, I whispered. I'll wait. I got in the car. He stepped back, and for once, when I looked in the rearview mirror, he was still watching. 1 month later, there's a new letter in my box now. This one postmarked from Florence. His handwriting's still messy. Still honest. Dear Sarah, I'm not writing this to win you back. I'm writing because I finally want to tell the truth without hiding. I'm taking time off. No galleries. No shows. Just time to find myself again. To remember who I was before I became a name in a press release. If you ever want to join me even just for a weekend, I'd like to show you the colors of this city. But if not, that's okay too. I just needed you to know. I see you now. I always did. Justini fold the letter and press it to my heart. Outside, the world is buzzing. But inside, I am still. No more pretending. No more silence. Just the ache of something unfinished. Slowly becoming whole again.